Welcome everyone to our channel. Today we're diving deep into the thrilling sci-fi tale Galactic Star Hunter on Frozen Irka. In the explosive finale, our brave protagonists, Tiara and Elias, face off against the ruthless tyrant Rexus in a high-stakes confrontation that tests not only their courage, but the fragile alliances they've built. Will their combined forces be strong enough to break Rexus's iron grip on Irka? Will the rare and precious virnexium, desired by so many, seal their victory, or unleash even greater danger? To find out exactly how Tiara and Elias overcome betrayal, brutal cold, and impossible odds, be sure to listen to the entire story until the very end. Your support keeps our channel alive, so please subscribe, hit the notification bell to stay updated, and drop a comment sharing your favorite moment, or where you're tuning in from. We can't wait to hear your thoughts, and we hope you'll join us for all the action-packed chapters in this one-of-a-kind space opera. Tiara braced herself against the metal console of her small starship as it rattled through Irka's frigid atmosphere. The craft's hull groaned from the sudden transition into the planet's dense, sub-zero air currents. Overhead, the instrumentation panel blinked with urgent red lights, which warned of dangerously cold external temperatures. Even with top-tier insulation, the starship's internal sensors struggled to keep the cockpit above freezing. Irka was infamous. It was a frozen wasteland where lethal storms raged across the ice-capped surface, where even the faintest error in survival protocol could lead to a swift and merciless death. Yet its icy deserts drew visitors from every corner of the galaxy, those who sought the rare cosmic minerals buried in meteorites that crashed onto Irka with surprising regularity. Tiara was one of them, a star hunter, traveling the galaxy in search of precious meteorites that could be sold to specialized corporations for massive sums. She reached for a reinforced lever near the pilot's seat, flipping a switch that deployed thermoregulation shields along the underside of the hull. The entire starship vibrated, then stabilized. All around her, the exterior cameras displayed endless stretches of white, punctuated by jagged black rock formations. At a cursory glance, it was hard to believe any form of life could thrive in these conditions. But Tiara knew better. Hidden beneath the unyielding ice were entire networks of geothermal vents, tunnels, and occasionally small outposts under domes of reinforced steel. Irka was a fortress of secrets. Tiara's breath fogged the inside of her visor as she pulled on a thick pair of gloves. She always wore her partial environment suit, even inside the cockpit, for the temperature on Irka could drop so fast that even a functioning spaceship risked flash freezes if something malfunctioned. Her reflection in the cockpit glass was that of a pale-faced woman in her late 20s, with sharp gray eyes and hair shaved close on one side. A faint scar trailed across her jawline, a remnant from an accident years ago on another desolate planet. She was no stranger to harsh environments or the constant threat of betrayal. Being a star hunter demanded it. When the starship touched down, the landing struts groaned against the frozen terrain. Tiara exhaled a breath of relief that quickly condensed into tiny crystals. She double-checked the coordinates for the next meteorite impact site, scanned her immediate surroundings, and checked the planet's weather patterns. Irka's storms were notoriously unpredictable. The forecast indicated relatively calm conditions for another few hours, just enough time for her to locate, extract, and haul away any meteorite fragments containing the rare elements that made this planet so lucrative. Before exiting, Tiara activated her ship's exterior turrets as a precaution. On Irka, pirates, smugglers, or unscrupulous star hunters might strike at a moment's notice. She'd learned the hard way never to trust the supposed friendly wave from a passing prospector. Too many times that had ended in gunfire. The precious meteorites fetched astronomical prices, so the planet was crawling with opportunists. Once she was confident her ship's perimeter was secured, she sealed her helmet. A hiss of pressurized air accompanied the helmet's lock. Then, hooking a plasma pick and scanning device onto her belt, Tiara stepped out into the frozen storm. The cold was immediate and shocking. Despite her advanced insulation, Tiara felt an icy blast creep into the chinks of her suit. The wind whipped at her back, cutting across her shoulders like shards of glass. A lesser adventurer might have been driven back into the ship by now, but Tiara advanced with determined steps, her boots crunching over layers of ancient ice. She was headed toward a small ravine about a kilometer away. According to her orbital scans, a meteorite had impacted in that location mere hours earlier. Any Star Hunter worth their salt would be drawn to the area, but she had arrived first, she hoped. Tiara kept a brisk pace, her breath echoing within the helmet. From time to time, she consulted the handheld device clipped to her forearm. It displayed real-time geological readings, indicating any unusual metallic deposits or anomalies in the area. Climbing a gentle slope of ice, she finally reached a vantage point above the ravine. A glowing orange crater at the center indicated her target, the meteorite's impact site. She surveyed the horizon, so far no sign of other star hunters or trouble. Taking a moment to secure a belay line, she rappelled down the side of the ravine, letting gravity help with the descent. As soon as she reached the bottom, the heat from the recently impacted meteorite enveloped her. Steam and melted slush hissed around the crater's rim. Tiara moved quickly, scanning for valuable alloys. The data told her that the cosmic rock contained virnexium, a sought-after mineral used in energy cores for advanced starship reactors. A find like that would fetch a massive payday. Her scanning device beeped happily, confirming high virnexium content. She planted her plasma pick into the meteorite's cooling husk, the glowing, molten ridges of the rock reflecting off her visor. But just as she began chiseling, her instincts flared a warning, a faint noise in her communicator. The sound of approaching footsteps, perhaps? She froze, shutting off her pick for a moment to listen. Sure enough, footsteps crunched through the ice above. Heart pounding, she cursed under her breath. So someone else had come sniffing around, presumably to claim or steal her meteorite. Usually she'd be ready for such an encounter. She had a sidearm holstered at her hip. But with the crater and the ice around her, escape wouldn't be easy if the newcomers were armed. Tiara pressed the side of her helmet to activate a reflection in the visor, capturing a wide-angle view of the ravine's edge above. She caught glimpses of silhouettes, more than one, possibly three. They seemed well-equipped for Irka's climate, wearing dark environment suits that clung close to their bodies. Each figure held a compact rifle. This was trouble. Outgunned and outnumbered, Tiara considered whether to stand her ground or retreat. The meteorite was too valuable to abandon, yet risking her life for it might be folly. She glanced back at the chunk of virnexium-laden rock behind her. Then she thought of the equipment on her belt. Maybe there was a clever way to tilt the odds in her favor. Suddenly, she heard a voice echo through the ravine, amplified by a helmet speaker. "You down there, step away from the rock. Leave your plasma pick and any harvest behind. You're trespassing on Rexus territory." Tiara's stomach clenched at the name. Rexus, a known smuggler and self-proclaimed warlord of Irka's unregulated Star Hunter community. He was reputedly ruthless, controlling a small army of bandits who patrolled the planet and claimed meteorites by force. She had heard rumors of entire crews disappearing after crossing him. But rumor or not, the threat was real. She did not respond verbally. Instead, she flipped open a compartment on her belt, withdrawing a small cylindrical device. It was a short-range smokescreen generator, rarely used in an icy environment, but the principle remained the same: produce a dense, swirling cover that would hamper the enemy's visibility. She pressed the ignition, placed it behind a chunk of ice, and braced herself. A swift hiss, followed by a thick cloud of dark smoke, flooded the crater. The steam from the meteorite crash mingled with the new fog, quickly blanketing the area in swirling blackness. Above, she heard curse and frantic yelling. Gunshots rang out, bright muzzle flashes illuminating the haze. Tiara threw herself against the ravine wall, flattening her body to avoid the wild blasts. Despite the confusion, Rexus's men weren't entirely incompetent. Tiara heard one of them bark instructions to another. Footsteps scuffed over the ice. They were descending. She had mere seconds to secure at least a small portion of the virnexium or cut her losses. In desperation, she lashed out with the plasma pick, cleaving off a backpack-sized chunk of the meteorite. It glowed faintly, still cooling. Gritting her teeth, she heaved the hunk of meteorite into her sample bag. The sudden weight nearly dragged her sideways, but she managed to keep her footing. Above, silhouettes approached, their beams of light cutting through the smoke. With the ravine's walls towering on either side, her best hope was to escape via a narrow side tunnel, rumored to connect to an old mining shaft. She recalled scanning an opening near the crater upon her arrival. Yes, there, a jagged crack in the ice. She sprinted for it, igniting her pick as a makeshift torch. Behind her, voices grew louder, the lasers and bullets whizzing past. She ducked, nearly losing her footing as an energy bolt exploded a chunk of ice near her left foot. When she reached the crevice, she squeezed in, wincing as the meteorite chunk in her bag scraped violently against the frozen walls. But she kept pushing forward. Soon the commotion of the ravine faded behind her, replaced by the eerie silence of the icy tunnel. She could only hope the channel led somewhere accessible, somewhere that wouldn't lock her in an underground labyrinth. Her heart pounded. The storm of adrenaline had her pulse racing. She could still feel the cold biting at every inch of her suit. At length, the tunnel opened into a massive underground cavern, faintly lit by crystalline deposits that glowed a pale blue. Stalactites of ancient ice hung overhead, and beneath her boots, the ground leveled off, forming a hidden plateau. She paused to catch her breath, forcing herself to check whether Rexus's men were still behind her. Silence. Had she outrun them, or were they quietly tracking her? Tiara had no illusions. Rexus was relentless. He would not let a hunk of virnexium slip away easily. She would have to leave the area soon, possibly relocate her ship, or take off before his full force descended. Clutching her sample bag, she pressed deeper into the cavern, determined to find a route back to the surface that wasn't crawling with bandits. She could only guess how large this subterranean system might be. If her luck held, she might emerge somewhere near her vessel. Little did she know, her escape attempt would send her straight into the path of someone whose presence on Irka would change her life forever. Reaching the exit of the cavern was more challenging than Tiara expected. The winding ice tunnels twisted unpredictably. She tested several passages only to backtrack when they became impassable. Each minute spent underground increased her risk. If the temperature plunged further, or if Rexus's men found an alternate route, she could be trapped. Guided by her suit's partial mapping function, Tiara located an ascending corridor. A faint draft drifted from above, hinting at an opening to the surface. She moved in that direction. Occasionally, she paused to press her gloved hand against the walls. Through the thick insulation, she could feel the hum of shifting air currents. At last, the corridor narrowed to a steep chimney of ice. Daylight filtered through swirling snow spilled in from above. Tiara sighed in relief. If she could climb up, she'd be able to reorient herself and possibly reach her ship. She rummaged in her belt for a grappling line. Fortunately, it was still intact. She aimed the device upward, anchored it against a sturdy outcropping, and tested the tension. A spark of satisfaction glowed inside her as she began the climb. The meteorite chunk weighed her down, but she refused to leave it behind. A trove of virnexium like that could pay off debts, upgrade her starship, and finance expeditions for years. She clenched her teeth, pulling herself inch by inch up the slippery shaft. Faintly, she heard voices echoing through the ice. Rexus's men? She picked up speed. Halfway up, disaster struck. A loud crack echoed through the chimney as the anchor point broke free from the brittle ice. Before Tiara could react, the grappling line gave way. She plummeted. The abrupt shift in momentum knocked her sideways, slamming her against the frozen wall. Pain jolted her shoulder, and her vision blurred. She tried to catch the wall with her gloves, but her hands skidded uselessly on the slick surface. Panicked, she braced for impact with the cavern floor. It would be a hard landing, potentially fatal, but instead of colliding with the unyielding ice, she found herself cushioned by something else. She hit the ground with a heavy thud, still jarring, but far less catastrophic than anticipated. Confused and disoriented, she glanced around. A figure clad in a heavy fur-lined coat had broken her fall. He coughed as he fell back, pressed by the force of her body on top of him. She scrambled off, adrenaline still surging. For a moment, neither spoke. Tiara, breath ragged, tried to regain her bearings. The figure rose, shaking off a dusting of ice shards from his coat. She noted that he was human, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair peeking from beneath a thick thermal hood. His breath crystallized in the sub-freezing air. In one gloved hand, he held a portable scanning device, not unlike her own. His face was partially obscured by goggles and a half-mask for warmth. "You saved me?" she gasped out, her voice still shaky from the near-death experience. He shrugged, his voice muffled by the wind and mask. "I heard someone climbing, then that anchor gave way. You were about to crash hard." Tiara stared at him, uncertain if he was friend or foe. He didn't appear to wear the uniform of Rexus's gang, nor did he brandish any weapon. "Who are you?" she demanded. Removing his goggles and half-mask, he revealed a kindly, if rugged face with faint lines around his blue eyes. "Name's Elias," he said simply, "a traveling doctor from the Interstellar Medical Corps. I'm here on Irka to study how the local population deals with these temperatures. Didn't expect to break someone's fall down here." She took in the notion. A doctor. Not many volunteer doctors ventured into Irka's harsh environment unless they had a specific mission or contract. "Tiara," she replied, still guarded. The pain in her shoulder throbbed, reminding her that she might need more than luck to get out of these tunnels. "I was climbing out. The ice gave way." Elias nodded. "Yes, I saw." "Are you hurt?" Tiara examined her left arm. "Shoulder's not dislocated, but it's close. Probably bruised at the least." "Let me see," Elias said, removing one glove to gently test the rotation of her arm. She hissed in discomfort. "I can splint it. I have supplies at my camp, not far from here." He rose, gesturing deeper into the cavern. "There's an upper tunnel that leads to my outpost. We can treat your injury properly." She hesitated. "I appreciate the help, but I need to get back to my ship. Rexus's men are after me. They won't stop until they find what I took from that meteorite." Elias's face grew concerned. "Rexus's men? That's serious. They've caused trouble at every settlement. Our medical outpost has had run-ins with them too." Tiara bit her lip. The idea of trusting a random stranger, even a doctor, was difficult. Yet the throbbing pain in her arm reminded her of her vulnerability. If Rexus's men located her first, she might not stand a chance. "Fine," she said at last. "I'll go with you, but as soon as I can move this arm properly, I need to get back to my ship." Together they wound through another series of corridors. Elias seemed surprisingly adept at navigating the twisting passages. "These routes connect to a large network of subglacial rivers," he explained. "They're frozen now, but you can still follow them if you know the signs." "Why build a camp here?" Tiara asked, glancing at him suspiciously. "Irka's not exactly tourist-friendly." Elias chuckled, a low, reassuring sound that echoed off the walls. "No, it's not. The Interstellar Medical Corps set up a small research station near some geothermal vents. We study the local settlers who harvest ice and meteorite fragments for a living. Their bodies have adapted in interesting ways, like higher hemoglobin counts and specialized metabolism. It's part of a bigger project on human resilience to extreme environments." He paused, giving her a curious look. "And well, to help treat the injuries that inevitably happen here." She listened quietly. Though she wasn't thrilled by the slow pace, it was better to move carefully. Her leg, still carrying the heavy chunk of meteorite, ached with each step. She had no intention of revealing the precious find to him, at least not yet. Soon, the faint glow of artificial lighting flickered ahead. Rounding a corner, she found herself in a wide, semi-natural cavern with steel supports and transparent panels forming a rudimentary dome. Inside, large heaters purred, keeping the space at a relatively comfortable temperature. Makeshift living quarters and labs dotted the perimeter. The entire place felt surreal, a sanctuary in the midst of Irka's lethal cold. Elias guided Tiara to a small medical bay set against one wall. Several cots lined the space, though only one was occupied by a silent figure swaddled in blankets. "Have a seat," he said, gesturing to a stool near a portable X-ray machine. Tiara obeyed, hissing at the pain in her shoulder as she removed the top portion of her environment suit. The next hour passed with Elias carefully examining her injuries. He confirmed no broken bones, but suggested she rest to prevent aggravating the bruised tendons. Despite her reluctance, Tiara grudgingly complied. Something about his calm professionalism put her at ease. She noticed the lines of fatigue in his eyes. He looked like a man who had dedicated years of his life to remote service. As Elias applied a mild analgesic and wrapped her shoulder, she studied him more closely. Under the heavy coat, he wore a standard-issue Interstellar Medical Corps uniform, though it was patched in places. He didn't appear heavily armed, just a small sidearm for defense. A far cry from the usual Irka crowd of smugglers and mercenaries. "All right," Elias announced, finishing the bandage. "Your arm will be stiff for a day or two, so avoid heavy lifting or shooting any big guns if you can help it." Tiara shot him a half-smile. "I'll do my best, but around here, that's a big ask." He returned the smile, turning to stow the medical supplies. Tell me more about what happened with Rexus. It's not every day I find a patient half buried in the ice with a gang of bandits on their tail. Tiara hesitated. Then with a resigned sigh, she told him in broad strokes about her meteorite hunt in the ravine and Rexus's sudden appearance. She left out specific details about the virnexium. Elias listened intently, arms folded, his brow furrowing at the mention of Rexus's name. When she finished, he let out a low whistle. That's rough. I've heard Rexus extorts prospectors and claims any meteorite with high-value materials. He has a large network of enforcers who roam the planet. Elias shook his head. I'm afraid you're in the crosshairs now. Tiara's mouth tightened. I won't let them steal from me. I've worked too hard to gather funds for my starship upgrades. Rexus can't just waltz in and claim it all because he thinks he owns Irka. No argument there, but you might need backup. Elias took a seat, a concerned expression on his face. You said you have a ship. Where? About 2 clicks from where I landed, near the southern ice flats, she replied. I parked close to the crater's coordinates. My ship's autopilot might have moved it if it detected danger, but I can't be sure. Elias ran a hand through his dark hair, thinking, I have a crawler vehicle at my disposal. We use it to reach remote settlements. The weather's about to turn nasty. Irka's storms can pick up in a blink. If we want to get you safely to your ship before Rexus escalates things, we should leave soon. Tiara was torn. Her rational side told her to rest her injured shoulder, but urgency pulsed in her chest, stoked by the memory of Rexus's men. The virnexium chunk in her sample bag burned in her thoughts, reminding her of the wealth and trouble it represented. Let's go, she said, swallowing her discomfort. I can't stay here too long. Rexus might have a lead on me, or worse, find my ship before we do. Elias nodded, retrieving a heavier coat and preparing the crawler's keys. At least let me gather some medical supplies, just in case. Within half an hour, they were ready. En my, Elias introduced Tiara to the few individuals who remained in the camp, a couple of research assistants and a security consultant nursing a broken ankle on one of the cots. They exchanged cordial greetings but seemed wary. Being a Star Hunter often came with a certain stigma. Many believed them to be reckless profiteers. Tiara tried not to show annoyance, politely returning their nods. Finally, they emerged into a corridor leading to another exit from the cavern. Elias lifted a steel hatch that opened onto a hidden docking area. Inside was the crawler, a 6-wheeled, all-terrain vehicle with a reinforced hull designed to withstand intense cold. Tiara hopped in the passenger seat, her arm throbbing with each movement. Elias took the driver's seat. With a rumble of the engine, the crawler lurched forward, rolling out into Irka's biting wind. Snow whipped against the windows. Tiara exhaled slowly, steeling herself. The journey would be perilous, but the alternative, waiting for Rexus to hunt her down, seemed far worse. And though she barely knew Elias, she found herself strangely comforted by his presence. Perhaps in this frozen wasteland, any kindness was a welcome rarity. As the crawler sped across the ice flats, disappearing into swirling gusts of white, Tiara couldn't shake the feeling that her fate had just shifted. She'd come to Irka expecting a routine job, a quick meteorite snatch and go, and now she was aligned with a traveling doctor, evading a violent gang, and nursing a battered shoulder. A wry smile crept across her lips. This planet had a knack for defying every expectation. Little did she realize the real danger and connection was only beginning. The crawler's heating system hummed steadily, providing a semblance of warmth as Elias navigated the endless field of ice. Tiara peered out the window, scanning for any sign of Rexus's men or unusual tracks. Gusts of snow lashed the vehicle's reinforced windshield. Clouds overhead shifted ominously, thickening into rolling masses that threatened a blizzard. How far to your ship? Elias asked, voice tense with concentration. The wind was picking up, making it harder to see. He gripped the steering wheel, occasionally checking a digital compass on the dashboard. Tiara tapped at the mapping device on her wrist, cross-referencing old coordinates with the planet's drifting storms. We should be close, she said, frowning. But given the weather, it might have relocated slightly if the autopilot engaged flight mode. Elias glanced at her, eyebrows raised. Your autopilot can do that? Lucky you. Most flyers on Irka just freeze in place if they're not carefully shielded. She shrugged, wincing at the pain in her shoulder. I spent a lot of credits upgrading my starship's AI and engine systems. Helps to have a backup plan when things go sideways. No sooner had she spoken than the crawler's sensors began blinking on the console. A warning beep echoed through the cabin. Elias tapped a screen. Receiving an encoded frequency. Might be from your ship. Tiara leaned forward, scanning the message. The display read, "Warning, potential hostile presence detected. Initiating limited flight to safer coordinates." Her heart sank at the confirmation. Rexus or his men must have stumbled near her landing site. Elias cursed under his breath. "We might find your ship farther south. Let's reroute. The terrain's rough, though." "Do it," Tiara said firmly. "I won't let them capture my ship. I'd rather we find it first." With a low growl of the engine, Elias turned the crawler to a southeastern heading. The wind howled, buffeting the vehicle. Tiara gripped the armrest to steady herself as they rolled up and down icy ridges. She shot a sideways glance at Elias, appreciating his skill in maneuvering across this frozen nightmare. Another wave of throbbing pain shot through her shoulder, making her grit her teeth. Outside, visibility deteriorated rapidly. Fine snow became thick sheets of white, swirling so fiercely that even the crawler's high beams provided minimal help. Elias slowed to a crawl, glancing between the windshield and the sensor array. Tension thrummed in the air. Just then, the comms device crackled to life with an unfamiliar voice. "Crawler, identify yourself. This sector is under the authority of Rexus. If you're not authorized, turn back immediately." Tiara's eyes widened. She gestured to Elias to mute outgoing audio. "They've set up a perimeter, probably scanning for vehicles. If they track us, they might send a patrol." Elias nodded, brow furrowed. "I'll stay silent." He tapped a few controls, hopefully blocking the crawler's comm signal. The overhead lights flickered as the storm's ferocity threatened the power supply. Moments later, the wind parted just enough to reveal a disconcerting white ahead. A squad of heavily armed figures trudging through the snow, about 100 meters away, almost invisible in the blizzard. They wore dark environment suits, each brandishing a rifle or sidearm. Tiara's heart pounded. Was Rexus among them? "Turn around," she hissed. "We can't fight them head on, and we need to find another route." Elias complied, carefully reversing direction. But before they could gain distance, a brilliant flare arced over the crawler, bathing the icy landscape in red light. The squad had spotted them. Gunshots cracked through the air, pinging off the vehicle's rear plating. "Brace yourself," Elias shouted, slamming the accelerator. The crawler surged forward, treads digging into the ice. Snow erupted in a cloud behind them, shielding them temporarily from gunfire. Tiara clutched the seat, her shoulder burning with every lurch. A chase ensued across Irka's bleak expanse. The bandits, agile on foot thanks to their specialized grappling gear, kept pace. They fired plasma bolts that sizzled and hissed against the ice. Elias zigzagged, forcing them to adjust. Adrenaline coursed through Tiara's veins. She debated grabbing a rifle from the crawler's storage compartment, but with her shoulder in this state, her aim would be compromised. She had to rely on Elias's driving. Eventually, after cresting a tall drift, they lost direct line of sight. The bandits' silhouettes disappeared behind the swirling snow. Elias took the chance to veer south, pushing the crawler to its limits. The engine roared defiantly, carrying them deeper into the storm. Tiara forced herself to breathe slowly, calming her racing heart. If they survived this, she promised herself never to come back to Irka for at least a year, maybe more. Finally, the sensors beeped. A faint signal indicated a starship on the ground, about 2 kilometers away, near the coordinates that her autopilot had broadcast. Tiara and Elias exchanged hopeful glances. Could it be her ship? "Let's hope it's not swarming with Rexus's men," Elias muttered. He adjusted course, the crawler's tires struggling for grip on the slick slope. Lightning flickered overhead, an electrical storm forming in the swirling clouds. They fought the storm for nearly 20 minutes, the crawler inching forward, yard by yard. The wind battered them mercilessly. More than once, Tiara had to wipe fog off the windshield from the inside. But at last, through a gap in the blizzard, they glimpsed a dark shape on the horizon. A starship with sleek lines and folded wings. Tiara's starship. A wave of relief flooded her. Yet the moment she allowed herself a breath, she noticed something else. Several figures in dark suits clustered around the ship's landing gear. She couldn't make out details, but it was obvious they were trying to force entry. Tiara's stomach clenched. "We have to stop them," she said. If they breach the ship's interior, they can override my systems. Elias grimaced. We're outnumbered, Tiara. Even if we drive straight at them, we risk them shooting us or damaging your ship in the crossfire. Gritting her teeth, Tiara scanned the crawler's modest arsenal. There was a compact turret on top, designed mostly for repelling small predators. Hardly enough for a full confrontation. We need a diversion, something that will draw them away. Elias nodded slowly, scanning the bleak expanse around them. If we circle around that ridge to the west, we might approach from behind. Maybe we can isolate a few of them before the rest notice. Worth a shot, Tiara replied. Time was ticking. If they stayed idle, Rexus's men would succeed in cracking her ship's codes. Elias steered the crawler around a small ridge, doing his best to remain concealed. The wind aided them, covering tracks faster than any search party could follow. When they drew closer, the starship loomed like a fallen bird on the pale horizon. Through the swirling snow, Tiara counted 5 figures. One knelt near the access panel, fiddling with a device. The other stood guard, scanning the surroundings. Here's the plan, she said, ignoring the stabs of pain in her shoulder. I'll slip out the side of the crawler and flank from behind those outcroppings. You come around from the front, distract them with the turret if necessary. Once I'm in range, I'll try to take out the one cracking my panel, then we handle the rest. Elias looked at her with concern. You sure your arm can handle a fight? I don't have a choice, she replied, voice steeled with determination. This is my ship. I'm not losing it. Though uneasy, Elias nodded. He slowed the crawler, letting the engine idle as they took cover behind a jagged ice formation. Tiara readied her sidearm, injecting herself with a mild stimulant to dull the ache in her shoulder. She left the heavier rifles stowed. She couldn't manage them effectively. Instead, she relied on her skill, refined by countless hunts on countless worlds. Elias popped open the driver's window. A biting gust rushed in, and he leaned out to manually raise the small turret. I'll give you a minute to get in position, then cause a ruckus. His breath crystallized, eyes sharp. Good luck. She offered a nod of gratitude, then quietly slid out through a side hatch. Icy wind slashed across her cheeks, even through her partial helmet. She clung to the ridgeline, creeping low. Each step was agonizing, but adrenaline propelled her forward. She recalled every corner of her starship's exterior. The best vantage point to shoot the technician at the access panel would be from the starboard wing, which was partially folded. Crouched behind a chunk of ice, Tiara aimed her pistol at the group. She counted heartbeats, waiting for Elias's signal. Her pulse hammered. She spotted the technician kneeling at the panel. Another figure carried a large rifle. The rest seemed equally armed, outnumbered again. Then a sudden burst of turret fire shattered the tense silence. Tracer rounds arced overhead, peppering the ground near the group. They dove for cover, shouting curses. Tiara fired twice, her bullets aimed precisely at the panel technician. Sparks erupted as the technician's device shorted out, causing them to recoil. Her second shot caught the technician in the thigh, sending them sprawling behind a snowbank. Chaos erupted. The guards spun around, returning fire at the turret. Their rifles spat energy bolts that crackled through the stormy air. Tiara ducked behind her icy barricade as plasma sizzled around her. She glimpsed Elias skillfully weaving the crawler, turret flaring with intermittent blasts, forcing the attackers to split their attention. Taking a breath, she emerged from cover again, pistol raised. Her first shot grazed a guard's shoulder, spinning him off balance. She fired again, hitting his rifle, knocking it from his hands. A second bandit pivoted and fired around in Tiara's direction. She barely managed to sidestep, the bolt striking the ice behind her with a sharp hiss. Her shoulder flared in agony. Gritting her teeth, she forced herself to move. She scrambled closer to the starship's landing gear, seeking the partial shelter of its metal struts. Elias drew some of the heat away, hammering the bandits with turret bursts. She prayed it would hold up under their return fire. A third guard advanced on her position, stepping from behind the tail fin. She caught a glimpse of the glint in his eyes behind his visor. Quickly, she raised her pistol, but he was faster. He fired first. The bolt seared past her ear, grazing the side of her helmet. Alarms blared in her suit as the face shield cracked. Panicked, she retaliated with a wild shot that missed entirely, then dove forward, tackling him at the knees. He toppled with a grunt, The impact sent a shockwave of pain from her injured shoulder through her entire torso. They wrestled in the snow, the guard struggling to bring his rifle around. Tiara used her good arm to pin it down. With a desperate snarl, she slammed the butt of her pistol into his visor, cracking it. The guard went limp, stunned. She inhaled raggedly, pushing off him as she scanned the battlefield. Elias's turret had stopped firing. Had it jammed? She saw the crawler pinned behind a mound of ice. Two bandits were focusing their fire on it, muzzle flashes strobing in the swirling snow. The other bandits were subdued or wounded. Summoning all her will, Tiara steadied her pistol, ignoring the piercing burn in her shoulder, and fired at the men assaulting the crawler. The shots forced them to dive away, giving Elias a reprieve. She staggered upright, waves of dizziness threatening her balance. A tense standoff followed. The bandits were battered, but they still had lethal weaponry. Tiara forced an authoritative tone, shouting over the wind, "Drop your weapons and back away, or I will end you right here." One of the bandits snarled in defiance, but his partner, bleeding from a wound in his side, tugged at his sleeve. Slowly, they both raised their hands. The technician Tiara had shot earlier clutched a wounded thigh, cursing. The other guard, who had lost his rifle, knelt in the snow, breathing heavily. Elias emerged from the crawler at last, pistol drawn. He and Tiara exchanged a nod, each covering the bandits from different angles. The wind howled around them, lightning flickering overhead. Tiara's voice was ragged, but she pressed on. "Who's in charge here?" The technician coughed, spitting onto the ice. "None of us. We only follow Rexus's orders." She glowered. "And Rexus?" "Somewhere else, setting up a bigger operation," rasped the wounded man. "He's preparing to expand his hold on Irka. Wanted your ship's systems. That's all we know." Though the man's eyes burned with hatred, he made no move to fight. They were outgunned and outmaneuvered, at least for now. Elias stepped forward carefully, scanning each bandit's injuries. He knelt beside the technician, who hissed in pain. "You need medical attention," Elias said calmly, "but we can't let you roam free to attack us again." The technician spat blood, refusing assistance. Tiara swallowed. "Elias, we can't waste time. A full-on storm is about to hit, and Rexus might send more forces. We have to secure my ship and get off this planet, at least for now." Elias nodded, clearly torn between his duty as a doctor and their immediate survival. "All right, but we can't just leave them to die." Tiara frowned, scanning the sky. Dark clouds churned, thunder rumbled. "Look, we'll lock them in the crawler's storage hold. It's not roomy, but it's insulated enough. We'll send help if we can. Right now, if Rexus gets reinforcements, we won't be able to help anyone." Despite initial protests, the bandits yielded, unwilling to freeze to death outside. Elias and Tiara disarmed them, herding them into the small storage compartment, which had minimal rations and a portable heater. Elias left a med kit. The men glowered, especially the one shot in the thigh, but they recognized it was better than the alternative. Once the bandits were contained, Tiara collapsed against the starship's landing gear, panting. The confrontation had sapped her strength. Elias rushed to her side, concern etched on his features. "You're bleeding," he said, noticing the gash from the grazed helmet shot. She gingerly touched the side of her head, feeling a sticky warmth. "Damn, must have clipped me. I'm fine. Just need to get inside." She forced herself to her feet. "Let's see if my ship's controls are still functional." With trembling hands, she keyed in her override code on the exterior panel. The door whooshed open. A surge of relief coursed through her. No lasting damage from the technician's attempts. Elias helped her inside. The interior lights flickered, acknowledging her presence. She slumped into the pilot's chair, hooking up her helmet feed to the console to run a diagnostic. "Damage minimal," a pleasant AI voice reported. "Initiating standard flight protocols. Virnexium sample detected in cargo go hold. Security clearance recognized." Tiara cast a fleeting glance at Elias, unsure how he would react to the mention of a valuable virnexium sample. He said nothing, simply kneeling beside her to patch the wound on her temple. "All right," she murmured. "We'll take off soon. The storm is about to become a monster, though. If we can break atmosphere before it fully hits, we'll be safe. If not, we might get battered." Elias secured the bandage, his brow furrowed. "Let's do it. There's no sense staying on Irka with Rexus out there." Tiara keyed sequences into the console. Engines roared to life. The starship vibrated. She grimaced at the pain in her shoulder. "Strap in," she said, flipping switches. "And Elias, thanks." He gave her a soft smile. "Just focus on flying, Star Hunter." Through the windshield, flurries of snow battered the hull. With a resounding shudder, the starship lifted off the ice, thrusters working double to fight the howling wind. The crawler, sealed with the captured bandits inside, shrank below. Tiara made a mental note to eventually send a rescue signal if possible. For now, her priority was to get away before Rexus's entire force descended. As the craft soared upward, turbulence rocked them. The swirling storm clouds crackled with plasma lightning. Tiara clenched her jaw. She was used to tricky takeoffs, but with an injured arm, everything felt 10 times more stressful. She guided the ship through pockets of swirling clouds, each one buffeting them with punishing gusts. The hull rattled, lights flickered. "Come on, you bucket of bolts," she muttered, coaxing the engines. Elias braced himself, knuckles white from gripping a safety handle. Then, like bursting through a dark curtain, they emerged above Irka's cloud layer. The infinite star-flecked void stretched out before them, and the sun's light gleamed off the planet's curved horizon. The ship stabilized, autopilot taking some of the strain. They'd done it, leaving Rexus behind, at least temporarily. Tiara exhaled a long, shaky breath, allowing her tense muscles to relax. Elias caught her gaze. For a moment, they exchanged a silent understanding. Both of them were battered, exhausted, but alive. Perhaps, in that fleeting second, they realized that fate had bound them together in unexpected ways. Safely in orbit above Irka, Tiara set the starship to autopilot, calibrating a slow geosynchronous pattern. She wasn't done with the plan forever. She had gear, potential leads on future meteorites, and a crawler containing bandits who might freeze if she didn't keep her promise to call for help. But the swirling storms below made any immediate landing suicidal. At least from up here, she had time to decide her next move. In the relative calm of microgravity, Elias removed his coat and exhaled in relief. "That was far too close," he said, sliding a hand through his hair. "I never intended to get into a firefight when I came to Irka." Tiara gave him a wry smile. "You're a volunteer doctor on one of the toughest planets in the sector. Sooner or later, you had to expect a run-in with local thugs." He laughed dryly. "Yes, but I thought I'd patch up frostbite, not dodge plasma bolts." His expression grew serious. "Still, I can't abandon my outpost forever. My colleagues are down there continuing research." She sighed, rotating her sore shoulder. "I know. We'll figure it out. For now, you should treat your injuries and mine. I'm feeling pretty banged up." They moved to the small med station near the rear of the ship, a cramped but functional space designed for emergency triage. Elias rummaged through her supply compartments, whistling softly at the advanced medical gear she'd accumulated. Tiara's face darkened. "I've needed it. You wouldn't believe the scrapes I've survived on other worlds." He gently helped her remove the upper part of her environment suit. Her undershirt was torn and bloodstained. The gash on her temple had begun to clot, but she needed disinfectant and a new bandage. Her shoulder was bruised and swollen. Elias frowned with professional concern as he ran a portable scanner. "You're lucky you didn't tear a ligament. This is going to hurt for a while." Tiara clenched her jaw. "I've had worse." Still, she hissed when he applied a cold compression pack. Working in silence, Elias treated her temple wound, carefully sealing it with a dermal regenerator. Each gentle touch of the device sent tingles of relief. Tiara found her eyes drifting over his face, noticing small details. The flecks of gold in his blue irises, the faint stubble along his jaw, the worry lines that hinted at a man who had seen too many tragedies in too few years. It struck her as odd to be so close to someone she'd met just hours ago. He finished bandaging her, stepped back, and gave a slight nod. "That should hold. Keep it clean." She rotated her shoulder gingerly, testing the range of motion. "Thank you," she murmured. Then, feeling a wave of weariness, she sank onto a small bench. "You're not half bad at patching people up, Doc." He chuckled, rummaging for a fresh shirt. "I've had practice. Our outpost sees more accidents than you'd think. Prospectors with collapsed lungs from faulty suits, frostbite that turns entire limbs blue, broken bones from falling into crevasses." A small shudder ran through Tiara at the mention of frostbite. She'd once seen a Star Hunter lose his entire left foot after he'd misjudged Irka's nighttime temperatures. The memory was enough to make her grateful for the doc's presence. Irka is brutal. That's the only word for it. Yes, Elias agreed, but also beautiful in its own way. His gaze drifted to the starship window where the planet's curvature glowed faintly, rimmed by swirling storms. Tiara's eyes softened. You're not wrong, she admitted. There was a stark majesty to Irka, the interplay of ice and sky, the promise of hidden treasures. For a moment, she felt a pang of longing. She thrived on challenge, on the solitary hunts that tested her will. That was who she was. And yet, she shook her head, pushing the introspection away. We need to talk about Rexus. If he's orchestrating a bigger operation, your outpost is in danger, along with any settlers who haven't paid him off. If he wants total control of Irka's meteorite trade, he'll be relentless. Elias's expression turned grim. He's already extorting resources from smaller camps. Some accepted as the price of living on Irka. Others tried to fight back and vanished. Tiara looked at him carefully. I can't promise to fix everything, but I do know one thing. If Rexus wants the virnexium in my cargo hold, he'll keep coming. The best way to stop him might be to stand our ground. He nodded, though the weight of the decision etched lines in his brow. We'll need help. The planet's local authority is too weak, and the official government rarely extends its reach this far. Still, there's a union of a few large settlements that might band together if we can show them Rexus is a threat to everyone. Tiara bristled slightly at the thought of politics. So we rally them behind a common cause, put an end to Rexus's intimidation. That sounds like a tall order, but if it means we can secure the planet for legitimate prospecting, it might be worth the effort. And let you do your medical work in peace, Rico. Elias caught her eye. Something unspoken passed between them, a sense of mutual respect and perhaps a flicker of deeper emotion. We can start by returning to the outpost once the storm settles. Gather allies, gather intel, plan a strategy. Tiara nodded. For once in her life, she found herself contemplating more than just a quick profit. Maybe there was something bigger at stake here. A chance to make Irka safer for the countless souls eking out a living on the ice. A beep from the cockpit signaled an incoming transmission. Tiara stood carefully, ignoring the twinge in her shoulder. She walked to the pilot's console, pressed a button, and a crackling voice emerged. Unidentified vessel. This is Koro Station in geosynchronous orbit. Please identify yourself. Tiara recognized Koro Station as a small orbital platform that served as a refueling and trade hub for Irka. She opened a channel. Koro Station, this is the starship Halcyon. Tiara speaking. We had to make an emergency departure from the planet's surface due to hostilities. A moment's pause, then the voice returned. Halcyon, be advised. Rexus has declared a blockade around Irka. He's threatening to intercept any ship that tries to land without paying him tribute. We're seeing multiple armed vessels under his control in the sector. Tiara's jaw tightened. She glanced at Elias. Understood, Koro Station. We'll keep that in mind. She ended the transmission. So he's escalating, Elias said softly, stepping beside her. He's no longer just a planet-bound threat. Looks like it. He must have used the funds he extorted to buy or refit some ships. This complicates everything, Tiara mused. We can't land freely, and neither can we leave your outpost undefended. For a long moment, they stood side by side, gazing at the swirling orb of Irka. Finally, Tiara exhaled, turning to Elias. We'll need a plan, and not just for going back. We may have to face him in orbit too. Elias's lips parted, 1,000 uncertainties reflecting in his eyes. You sound ready for a war, Tiara. She gave a humorless laugh. I might not want a war, but it's coming anyway. Rexus won't stop unless we stop him first. They spent the next hours locked in discussion. They mapped out potential allies, scattered homesteads, small outposts, prospectors tired of paying Rexus's taxes. They listed possible advantages. Koro Station might be sympathetic. The Interstellar Medical Corps might provide non-combat assistance. And Tiara's starship, with stealth technology and a potent engine, could outmaneuver heavier craft if used strategically. Meanwhile, Tiara's mind kept drifting to the chunk of virnexium in her hold. She realized it was both a curse and a blessing. It was valuable enough that Rexus would hunt her to the ends of the galaxy, but it also might fund a defense or even bribe some of his men away. A dangerous game indeed. By the time they finished planning, exhaustion loomed. Elias nodded off first, leaning in the co-pilot's seat. Tiara watched him for a moment, reading the subtle lines of his face, and realized how relieved she was not to be alone in this ordeal. Gently, she rose and retrieved a thermal blanket from a compartment, draping it over him. His eyes fluttered open briefly. He gave her a sleepy half-smile of gratitude before nodding off again. She settled into the pilot's chair, rotating it to face the star-studded void. The swirl of emotions in her chest, the lingering adrenaline, the concern about Rexus, the unexpected comfort of Elias's presence, kept her awake. She allowed herself a small moment of vulnerability, letting her eyes drift closed as she inhaled the recycled air. In a matter of hours, dawn would break on Irka's surface, though the planet's storms rarely let sunlight pass unscathed. She and Elias would have to find a way to land, find a way to rally support. For once, she wasn't merely hunting. She was saving something. Someone. Many someones. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. Light from Irka's rising sun refracted through the planet's swirling storm layers, painting the starship's cockpit in muted hues of purple and pink. Tiara stirred, blinking away fitful rest. Elias was already awake, quietly studying the star charts. He glanced at her, his expression earnest. "I managed to contact my outpost via a secure channel," he said softly. "They're all right, but there's an increase in Rexus's men patrolling the area. The outpost is sealed, bracing for a confrontation." Tiara inhaled, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. "We can't let them face this alone. Time to put our plan in motion." It took hours of careful negotiation with Coral Station's administrators to secure safe docking. Rexus's blockade ships loomed in the region, but Coral Station's defenses were modestly sufficient to deter a direct assault. For now, it remained neutral ground. Tiara guided the Halcyon into a docking bay, relieved to feel the station's artificial gravity as she stepped onto the ramp. A short, portly station manager named Krivaye met them with a wary smile. "Welcome, Commander Tiara. We had word from your transmissions. So you're the troublemaker on Irka now, huh?" Tiara raised an eyebrow. "Only if troublemaker means not letting a tyrant hijack the planet." Krivan chuckled. "Fair enough. Follow me. We've got a secure meeting room where we can talk." Elias and Tiara exchanged glances and followed. They wound through narrow corridors packed with crates of supplies bound for the planet's surface. The tension was palpable. Crew members eyed them suspiciously, whispering about the blockade. Finally, Kreven ushered them into a small conference room. "Speak quickly," Kreven said, tapping a console to activate soundproofing. "Rexus has ears everywhere. My superiors have no love for him, but they're also not keen on open warfare." Tiara stepped forward, arms crossed. "He's already declared war, blockading Irka. We have intel he plans to seize or destroy any vessel that doesn't pay his tribute. He's also sending ground forces to subjugate outposts. We need help." Kreven frowned. "Coral Station doesn't have a strong fleet. We can defend ourselves, but not wage a planet-wide campaign. We rely on trade with the surface for essential resources." "Then help us rally the other settlements and pass information," Elias interjected. "We have a plan to unify the small outposts under a single banner. Together we could overshadow Rexus's numbers." The station manager rubbed his chin. "Tricky, but if enough outposts stand united, Rexus might think twice. We'll do what we can, but we need to protect our own interests too. If Rexus tries to cut us off from supplies, well, it gets complicated." Tiara's frustration simmered, but she kept her voice level. "Every day we delay, Rexus tightens his grip. I'll personally go planet-side, gather the major outpost leaders, and coordinate an alliance. But we'll need to land supplies from Coral Station, along with potential volunteers for defense. Can we count on that?" Kreven hesitated, then nodded slowly. "If it means busting Rexus's blockade, yes. We'll discreetly funnel supplies. But be warned, if he retaliates, we might withdraw to preserve what's left of our neutrality." Tiara exhaled, aware that was likely the best offer they'd get. "Fine, let's proceed. Patch me through to any outpost leaders who'll listen. I'll arrange a rendezvous." Within an hour, Tiara and Elias had established communications with 3 major settlements on Irka: Frostfall, White Crag, and Therma Springs. Each had dozens or hundreds of inhabitants. The leaders listened warily, many distrustful of a Star Hunter's intentions. But with Elias's reputation as a physician bridging the gap, they agreed to a secret summit near an abandoned mining facility known as Icebreaker Shaft, located in a neutral zone. Cravan arranged a clandestine cargo shuttle to transport them planetside, bypassing Rexus's sensor nets. Tiara's starship would remain docked, shielded from detection. Elias volunteered without hesitation, determined to return to the outpost and protect his colleagues. They both recognized the risk. If Rexus caught wind of their plan, the mission might turn deadly. Just before departing, Tiara checked the virnexium sample in the Halcyon's cargo hold. Its luminous veins glowed with potential wealth. She locked it in a secure container. "We'll need it eventually," as she told Elias. "Could bribe some of Rexus's men or fund better defenses." He nodded, though fairly. "Money is a double-edged sword, but it may tip the scales in our favor." Kreven wished them luck, and they boarded the stealth cargo shuttle with a pilot loyal to Koro Station. As they slipped from the docking bay, the tension in Tiara's chest mounted again. Descending to Irka's atmosphere, she half expected a hail of plasma fire. But the pilot skillfully navigated a series of decoy signals and chaff bursts, evading Rexus's orbiting patrols. Clouds parted as they dropped altitude. The shuttle banked sharply, weaving through canyons of ice. Eventually, a hidden landing zone came into view, a small plateau on the edge of the massive icebreaker shaft. The pilot set the craft down gently, then gave them a curt nod. "Good luck down there," he said. "I'll be waiting for your signal. Don't take too long. This place isn't exactly cozy." Tiara and Elias exited, the biting cold of Irka's surface assaulting them once more. She clutched her environment suit tighter, verifying the seals. The wind was calmer than before by Mamam, but the temperature was still lethal without proper gear. A faint plume of steam rose from a fissure in the ice, revealing hidden geothermal activity. They hiked toward the mining facility's entrance, a yawning hole in the ground framed by rusted beams and old signage. Decades ago, a corporation had tried to excavate minerals from deep below, only to abandon the venture when the ice repeatedly collapsed tunnels. Now it was a ghostly landmark. Inside, the air felt marginally warmer. Floodlights powered by a portable generator illuminated the cavernous main chamber, where hastily arranged crates and tarps suggested a makeshift meeting area. Armed guards from various outposts ringed the space. Tiara counted at least 15 of them, each wearing different styles of environment gear. Suspicion and tension thickened the air. She sensed it in every watchful glance. Standing near a portable heater were three figures who appeared to be the settlement leaders. Mayor Sansia of Frostfall, a stern woman with silver hair, wearing a patch over one eye. Foreman Rayo of White Crag, a lean, weathered man with a mechanical brace on his left leg. Chief Nari of Therma Springs, a broad-shouldered woman with a clan tattoo across her forehead. They eyed Tiara warily but greeted Elias with cautious respect. Nari offered a stiff bow. "Dr. Elias, I remember you from your medical visits." He nodded, face serious. "Chief Nari, good to see you safe." Sunsia's single eye flicked to Tiara. "So this is the Star Hunter stirring up talk of rebellion?" Tiara felt a spark of defiance. "I'm no rebel. I just won't let Rexus extort every decent soul on Irka. We came to coordinate an alliance." Foreman Ryo raised an eyebrow. "Rumor has it you hold a valuable meteorite. Rexus wants it. Are you seeking to use us as a shield while you profit?" Elias, sensing Tiara's frustration, stepped in. "We're here to help. Yes, the meteorite is valuable, but it can also be leveraged to rally support against Rexus. He's building a blockade, harassing outposts, seizing property. Even if you capitulate now, he'll demand more later." Nari nodded. "We know. Our scouts have sighted large convoys of mercenaries. We're outnumbered. And that's why we stand together," Tiara insisted. "Alone, each outpost is easy prey. Together, you can form a militia to defend your territory. With Koro Station's quiet support, we can break Rexus's hold." Mayor Sensia frowned, crossing her arms. "I've lost people to his raids before. We can't just declare open war. Too many innocents would die." Tiara took a breath, reminding herself to remain calm. No one wants a bloodbath. But Rexus isn't leaving any peaceful alternative. He's pressuring outposts to sign away their freedom, or else they vanish. If we do nothing, we'll lose everything bit by bit. A charged silence fell. Then after a tense moment, Foreman Ryo spoke. voice resigned. We can provide manpower and knowledge of the terrain, but we need weapons, resources, medical aid if our people are injured. Otherwise, morale breaks. Elias raised a hand. The Interstellar Medical Corps outpost can serve as a field hospital. We have some supplies. Okoro Station can deliver arms and food if we coordinate shipments carefully. Chief Nari grunted, shifting her weight. And who leads this alliance? We're all proud folk. We don't want one settlement lording over the others. Tiara glanced at Elias. He gave a subtle nod of encouragement. She inhaled. I'll serve as a liaison with Koro Station, and I'll fight alongside you. But the alliance leadership should be shared. Each settlement keeps autonomy. We only unify against Rexus's threat. Mayor Sensia studied Tiara's face. You're asking us to trust a star hunter with no ties to Irka. Tiara let her gaze sweep over the armed guards, the crumbling facility, the flickering lights. Irka's been part of my livelihood for years, whether you realize it or not. Yes, I profit from meteorites, but that doesn't mean I want a tyrant to control this planet. Rexus won't stop with me. He'll crush everyone. Silence again. Then Sensia inclined her head. All right, we'll do it. But if you betray us, we'll bury you in Irka's ice. Tiara nodded, ignoring the knot in her stomach. Understood. They spent the next hours hashing out details. Rio's men described vantage points along glacial ridges that could act as natural fortifications. Nari explained how her people harnessed geothermal vents for power, possibly a tactic to burn or melt corridors Rexus's forces might use. Sensia spoke of supply lines from Frostfall, hidden stockpiles of old mining explosives. Elias coordinated medical coverage, listing potential field stations and safe routes to shuttle the injured. Tiara offered to ferry small squads in her starship if necessary, provided they avoided Rexus's orbiting patrols. The plan formed piece by piece, precarious yet hopeful. By the time the group adjourned, exhaustion weighed heavily on all. The settlement leaders departed, each returning to muster their people. As they left, Tiara noticed a faint glimmer in Sensia's eye, something akin to cautious hope. Tiara and Elias lingered a moment in the now quiet meeting room, the portable heater humming. He turned to her with a tired but determined smile. We actually did it. We have an alliance. She exhaled a shaky breath. Yeah, let's hope it's enough. Elias's gaze softened. He lifted a hand to gently touch her bandaged shoulder, checking if it still hurt. We should get you some rest. You've been pushing yourself. Tiara tried to shrug it off, but the movement caused a twinge of pain. She sighed. Fine. A few hours of shut-eye, then we check on your outpost. I want to see how your colleagues are holding up. They'll be a key part of the medical plan, right? He nodded. Yes, and also, they're my friends. With a last glance at the swirling snow drifting in from the entrance, they turned deeper into the shaft to find a quiet corner. Their alliance was fragile, their resources limited, and Rexus's shadow loomed larger every moment. But for the first time since her arrival on Irka, Tiara felt more than just the icy wind. She felt the faint warmth of solidarity. Perhaps that was enough to spark a tiny flame of hope in the frozen darkness. Thank you for sticking with us through every twist and turn on the frozen planet of Irka. We hope you've enjoyed this epic blend of danger, loyalty, and unexpected romance. Your support means the universe to us. So if you haven't yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. By doing so, you'll never miss a new story as soon as it lands on our channel. What do you think of the alliances formed, the battle strategy against Rexus, and the sparks flying between Tiara and Elias? Let us know your personal take in the comment section below. And don't forget to mention where you're listening from so we can unite fellow story enthusiasts across the galaxy. We truly appreciate every like, share, and subscription, and we're excited to bring you even more captivating adventures soon. Stay tuned.